Hi, I'm James Kotecki. You're here with me in the C-Space Influencer Studio at CES 2019. Here with us, Asher Rapkin, Global Head of Business Marketing, Messaging, and Emerging Platforms at Facebook. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
Well, welcome to the studio. Thanks so much for joining us
Thanks,
today.
man.
Let's have you start by defining your role at Facebook. What do you do?
Absolutely. So I'm part of our global business marketing team, and we focus on helping our partners, so clients and agencies, understand what we build, why it matters, and how to use it. So in my team in particular, we focus on early stage and near-term revenue products. Those are things like Messenger, for example. We've worked on WhatsApp, and now we're focusing on augmented and virtual reality too.
It's all very exciting. Give me some numbers to kind of put some scope around some of these things in terms of brands or people or numbers around WhatsApp and Messenger.
Yeah, so Messenger and WhatsApp have continued to grow at exponential rates. I've worked on Messenger in particular for just shy of 4 years now, and right now we're at about 1.3 billion monthly active users of Messenger. So that's doubled in the 3 years that I've been working on the product. WhatsApp is at about 1.5 billion monthly active users. So if you put that into context around global population, talking about 1 out of every 5 people on the planet using one of those products.
And is there an international kind of divide where WhatsApp is more international and Messenger is more domestic here in the US, or is that not the right way to think about it?
It's a perfectly fair way to think about it. So both Messenger and WhatsApp definitely have countries where one over-indexes versus the other. And there's cultural elements to that, there's historical elements to that. WhatsApp in particular, for example, got its start really focused on emerging markets that where people didn't have a lot of access to fast data. So a very lightweight messaging application really helped grow the behavior. So WhatsApp tends to move forward in markets like that. And Messenger, having been part of Facebook for so long, tends to be a significant part of most people's experience of Facebook, no matter where they are in the world.
Sure. Tell me, if I'm a brand coming to you for the first time, I'm thinking, okay, I want to do, my CMO told me I got to do something with Messenger. I don't even really know where to start. What do you tell me?
So first thing I'd say is that's probably not the best question or way to approach it.
But you know people do come with that question.
Absolutely,
yeah.
and it's a very common question, but generally we want to encourage people to build for objective and not for technology. So for example, if we tend to ask an open question like, what do I do on Messenger? How do I use WhatsApp? It can open up the mind to all sorts of really creative opportunities, but that doesn't always help us focus on what the fundamental objective you're trying to achieve is. So the way I like to look at it is, whatever you're doing, whether you're trying to get someone to buy a movie ticket or thinking about booking a test drive for a car, or whatever your business objective is, to look at messaging in the same way that you would look at any other channel. So if I'm trying to book a test drive, is Messenger going to help shorten the distance between the individual and the test drive better than a traditional direct response ad or a traditional brand video ad, for example? And if it does, then we can focus on creating a way to make that work for you. But if it doesn't, that's okay, because there's still a wide range of tools that work. So we want to make sure that people just aren't embracing the technology just because it's new.
And let's be specific about kind of what you're building for brands to use these kinds of things and how they're using them. I mean, a simple way to think about it would be I go to a brand's Facebook page and I just want to send them a message on Messenger. Is it more nuanced and complicated than that, or at the end of the day, from the consumer perspective, is it just that simple?
It should be that simple. I mean, we definitely offer tools that help brands promote their presence on Messenger. So for example, sticking with the car example, if you were trying to get people to have a conversation with you to book a test drive, one natural point in might be through clicking on a Message Now button on a Facebook page. Another way might be through a paid promotional ad unit, a click to message unit, which would appear in a user's feed because they were likely in market for a car, and you would be able to click on that call to action and open a thread right there. The significant value too, if you think about it to an advertiser, is the persistence of that conversation. So much of advertising is fleeting, right? You're going through your feed and you see something and maybe it catches your attention or you get really excited about it, but it goes away. It's fleeting. It's like any other form of advertising. A message thread stays there. So if I start a conversation with automotive brand X, and 6 months later I decide to pick that conversation up, it's right where I left it. And that makes it very easy for a consumer to come back and for a brand to pick up where someone might have left off.
Is messaging something that maybe makes more sense for people like car manufacturers who are trying to get somebody to make a big purchase, and I really want to talk to someone and consider it over a long period of time? Is that the kind of purchase that's best served by messaging as a form of advertising? Or is it something more smaller dollar?
No, look, I think messaging has a major place in every part of the funnel, but consideration is a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, we know that people spend an extensive amount of time doing research on significant purchases. You know, I'm in the middle of looking at buying a new house or thinking about getting a new car.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend time really researching all of those options and being able to have that conversation with a lender or with a automotive dealership or what have you in my own time makes it a lot easier for me to get through considerations that by the time I'm ready to convert, I've already worked through everything that I normally would have done in person or on the phone or something that is generally more time consuming.
Yeah. And so messaging doesn't exist in a vacuum, obviously. It exists on Facebook where so much else is going on. For a brand, do brands think about building an entire strategy when it makes sense around messaging as the endpoint or the ultimate CTA, or does it integrate with, how does it best integrate with everything else that Facebook is doing?
So going back to that larger point about building for objective and not technology, I think that is core to what we're discussing here. So when a brand thinks about how messaging fits into their go-to-market, we always want to figure out, like, are you using messaging because you know it is a consumer behavior that's growing, or are you using messaging because it's going to help you more effectively either communicate an opportunity or a benefit to a brand, or ultimately help you convert that individual more quickly? Mm-hmm. So one common misstep is this idea that because messaging generally has a dynamic of conversation, that you must have a conversation with your customer in order to get them to what you want. That's not necessary. Like, we don't always necessarily have to have a talk about, like, booking a parking spot or confirming a movie. Right. I might just want to say, hey, can I get a ticket to this film at this time, and then receive a thumbs up back and know that I'm booked in. And that compression, that ability to do a number of tasks that might have required discrete applications in the past, makes messaging such an appealing space. But if you add that dynamic of, like, having a conversation with the computer, it doesn't always pay off in the way that I think people want it to.
Right, and are we talking about humans on the other end of this, or bots, or both?
It can be. So one of the things that we focused on is making sure that our API, so our backend, allows for both. Mm-hmm. Because we know that there are some systems that are great examples of automation, and some things that are going to require personal nuance and a touch. So, for example, there are a few hotel chains that have embraced both automation and one-to-one conversation through messaging. One example might be, maybe I'm in a hotel and I'm on a conference call, I'm super hungry, I want a cheeseburger. Instead of putting one phone on mute and picking up the other to call room service, I can just shoot a message to my ambassador and say, hey, can you send up a cheeseburger to room 550? And it comes right up. Now, I might have a more nuanced question that requires a person.
Right.
Like, hey, on that call, I know I need to find a space for me and my client to have dinner, so I'll say, can you make me a recommendation for a local restaurant? That might get diverted to a person who would then be able to help me. But the idea is to tier it out so that the most common questions can be dealt with automation, while those that require a personal touch get people.
You mentioned the thumbs up. I assume you could also maybe even send a pictograph of a burger or something like that, or a GIF of a guy eating a burger if you wanted one. Like, messaging is so visual now. I mean, we're kind of talking about it as if it's people typing on a keyboard, but so much of it is visual, especially the way that individual people, consumers, communicate. So how is messaging changing, and how is it built for that, and how do you see that progressing as we head into 2019?
So messaging, like all modern media today, is witnessing, I think, a shift in lexicon. We're moving from a verbal to a visual lexicon. So where I might have described something in the past, so, I'll get off stage here and I'll tell a friend, oh, I just, was at the C-Space having this great conversation, et cetera, and I'll describe that. Now, someone might just shoot 15 seconds of this over my shoulder, augment it with a couple of stickers, and make that into a story, and then disperse that to friends. That shift from the verbal to the visual is profound and has impacted everything from how we communicate and feed on Facebook, how we share information on Instagram with stories, and of course now directly through messaging. So I think the expectation that we can express ourselves more visually is now de rigueur, and it's just going to keep going down that road. So the idea of that one-to-one, verbal conversation back and forth is starting to feel a little arcane.
And is everything that we just talked about on Messenger also applicable to WhatsApp? Or are there any specific nuances that don't apply or that are more unique to WhatsApp?
So there's all sorts of regional distinctions around the way people use messaging in different countries. As far as the visual component, no. People absolutely share images and video and stickers and emojis and all manner of visual
Which is neat because
expressive
it's kind of a
tones.
universal language, and maybe it allows
Totally.
more cross-cultural communication.
Absolutely. People can process images way, way, way faster than they can process text. So when you consider that, it's actually a way of breaking down international borders. You know, if I send a GIF to a group of people that's 500 people strong and only a third of them speak English, everybody's going to understand what I'm saying if that GIF sends an emotional truth that's true,
Yep.
even if I can't speak the languages of everyone else in the group.
Yeah. So what are you most looking forward to for 2019? You've got a lot going on.
So what I'm really excited to see are customers and clients of ours really focusing, again, on narrowing down the channels that they're choosing and really focusing on helping people shorten the distance between what they want and how to get there. So, for example, I think we've done a really good job, just as an industry in general, of making it relatively easy for people to convert on simple tasks. You know, booking a movie ticket, upgrading a seat on an airplane, confirming an appointment with your doctor, what have you. I would love to see all of the ancillary elements that used to be there, like the requirement to download a complicated app or logins that are extraneous, fall away in lieu of what we're seeing on messaging now, which is an individual who can identify themselves, a company who can understand that personal need, offering exactly what they want in a place that can happen, in a place where people are having conversations anyway. If we can shorten that and compress those things, I think consumers are going to be happier, businesses are going to see higher levels of conversion, and we're going to start advancing to a much more nuanced means of communicating with one another.
So I don't have to necessarily sign in as much or authenticate myself because I'm already on Facebook. You know it's James Kotecki, and
Exactly.
I have that relationship.
And when a
already with the
message
brand.
comes into a brand, they'll know that it is you. You don't have to raise your hand and re-authenticate. And that's such a huge win, I think, for a lot of different brands.
Great. Well, we've had Facebook here in the C-Space Influencer Studio for 3 years in a row. They're always great conversations, and this one was no exception. So Asher Rapkin of Facebook, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. Keep it right here. This is the C-Space Influencer Studio. I'm James Kotecki, and more great conversations are just ahead.